Hi everybody, I'm Michael. Thank you for stopping by. Today we're going to be talking about how you can grow the aloe vera plant indoors as a house plant. So, you ready to dig in? Let's grow! The wonderful healing aloe vera plant goes by the botanical name Aloe Vera barbadensis Miller, and she's native to the Arabian Peninsula. She makes a wonderful house plant. This plant is known for healing properties, as well as actually helping form like a HEPA filter in your home. This is a good air purifying plant. Such a cool plant, very exotic looking. Let's talk a little bit more about her characteristics. You can grow these several ways. Here we have some clumping smaller ones here, and we have a large one that I've separated out from others because I want to grow it to make this architectural statement. You can see it's kind of bold, and I love that look. I may get a few more of these and grow them in a group so I get some dramatic effect. But it's such a cool plant. Has these long spear-shaped leaves with spines, but the spines aren't really tough. They have a little point to them, but they're not sharp like a bougainvillea or some of the other cactuses or succulents that have spines. Such a unique plant. Doesn't grow that fast indoors, we have found, but I've had these in pots at our Miami Shores home, and they just grow like crazy down here in South Florida, outside. This one here is growing a little bit closer to the west, and we'll go into plant care in a minute. But if you get a little bit more bright light or even a little bit of late afternoon sunlight, these will turn a little bit lighter yellow. And if you keep yours further away from a light source, they're going to get more of a darker green color to them. So cool. Now on the healing properties, this plant, my mom used to cut these things when we were kids because we're constantly running around barefoot in Fort Lauderdale and cutting ourselves, doing stuff in the yard or at Birch State Park. And she would, if we didn't have basamycin, which was the thing she would use sometimes to tell us to get an aloe piece in one of the plants outside and cut the leaf. And in here, there's this gel, and we would put it on our cuts or burns or whatever we messed around with. And it has a healing property similar to when you put an antibiotic ointment. But the one thing about it that I always remember, and here it is again, it's very sticky. This gel is very sticky, and it forms a gooey mess. But one thing that I want to mention is that if you're going to be cutting your aloe vera to get a stalk to use for a cut or scrape, make sure you spray down your cutting utensils in your hands with alcohol beforehand so that you don't cut into the plant and possibly move any pathogens inside. So I just wanted to make that note. We sprayed ours before this video here so we could do that cutting. So back to the plants. These are medium-sized plants indoors. If you're going to be growing them, they're going to get to about 28-30 inches overall over time. They're not going to grow very fast indoors. They grow at a moderate pace outdoors, but indoors they're going to be more or less slow and steady growers. But they just form great conversation pieces. This has a similar look to the moonshine, which I have over here. Sansevieria, they have this sculptural look, and I'm digging that. I just love that look. The Sansevierias have a very strong architectural look to them, as does the aloe vera, and so does the ZZ plants. Those have these upright growth habits, which is kind of cool when you're trying to add some drama or some effect in your home or mix things up. You can place these plants among your others to create a really cool dynamic look to your indoor garden space. So now that we've talked about plant characteristics, let's rotate over into plant care and we'll go into some of the details about this plant. I'm caring for your aloe vera. Let's first talk about lighting. Your aloe vera is going to want high light, and that's going to be between 500 and 1,000 foot candles. You can't even go higher than 1,000 foot candles. We recommend you place these on a west-facing windowsill or even a south-facing windowsill. They do like a lot of light, but you don't want to necessarily give them hot, direct 3 o'clock sunlight, because that can burn these leaves. They're very thick and fleshy leaves, and they're grown out obviously in full sun down in the Arabian Peninsula, but indoors, they get acclimated to a lot less light, and so they don't build up that strength to handle that strong sunlight, especially down here in South Florida. So be aware of that. Just because it's a succulent doesn't mean it can't get scorched by the sunlight, because a lot of these are grown in shade houses, and then they sell them to folks to bring inside your home, and so they've been acclimated to not getting a lot of direct sunlight. So again, highlight 500 to 1,000 foot candles. You can always get a light meter. We've done a video on that, on how to read a light, get light readings in your home, so you know exactly what kind of lighting your space is providing for your plant. But with that, we're going to move on to the soil type. So this being a succulent, you want a real well-drained mix. These hold a lot of water in their stems, and so they're used to getting periods of water and then no water. They go through these cycles. So you want to have a soil that has this ratio. We recommend a cactus mix, 90% of cactus mix with 5% perlite added, and then in there add 5% worm castings to get to 100%. Mix it all up. That's going to provide a well-drained potting mix for your aloe vera. They don't want standing water. That's the main thing. We're going to go into water now, but they don't want any standing water. That's going to cause rot, and this happens to a lot. It'll happen to your snake plants. We've done some videos on that, and also the ZZ plant. Those plants all hold a lot of water in their leaves and in their roots, and they don't need a lot of care. So this is a pretty low maintenance plant. And that one I'm going to talk about watering now. You only need to water this once a month, and you can even go a little bit longer. But we recommend just about every 3 weeks to a month water it. But water her well. Water it so the water drains all the way through. Because being a cactus mix, it's going to drain well. But you want to make sure the water gets all the way down so that the roots all the way through the plant are getting the nutrients that they need. So every month, that's pretty low maintenance, because you just set her on a shelf and let her do her thing, let them do their thing, and then every month or so, water them. If you notice the plants are starting to droop, or you notice they're starting to thin out and not be as fleshy, then you can increase your watering, because it could be that your plant is getting a lot more bright light than someone else's or even ours, and so you may want to increase your watering. So one way to check to make sure is that you could always get a bamboo skewer, or use your finger and go down to the second knuckle, the 2-knuckle rule we call it, but you can always use a bamboo skewer, and right before you're watering, let's say you're going into the month cycle, 1 month, you want to dig your skewer down, and this one here is coming back dry. There's no moisture and no soil on this. So this one's, she's ready to be watered again. And it's been about a month since we've watered her. I also want to point out is that we love to put all of our aloes, if we can, in a terracotta pot. And we like to have the white on white inside, so we put the terracotta inside this decorative ceramic container. But the terracotta pot is kind of like a little hack a little plant hack. This one here is not, but this aloe vera here, but it's a growing container that has a lot of perforations, a lot of drainage areas all the way around. It's almost like an orchid pot. So it's got a lot of drainage so that water comes through and evaporates and drains out, so you don't have water sitting on the sides of the pot. And that's another thing that's really good about terracotta pots and aloe veras and plants that like to be dry, is that the terracotta pot will pull the water out to the outside edge. So we like to recommend that as a way to help maybe blunt any trauma that your plant will have if you happen to overwater the plant. Terracotta is really great at absorbing that excess water and helping move it outside of the plant soil base. So now that we've talked about watering, let's talk about fertilizing. You don't need to fertilize this plant much. You can fertilize in June and August. We recommend June and August. And Espoma has a really cool cactus one. It's a 1-to-2 ratio. Very, very low. That's very, very diluted. It's hardly any fertilizer, but it's great because these plants aren't picky about or in need of a lot of fertilizer. So you can just do a light fertilizing in those 2 months, and the rest of the year you don't have to even do it. Just let it go. Just let it do her thing. On pests, let's talk a little bit about that. We've been lucky on our aloes. We haven't had any pests. But right next to our aloe, we have our pencil cactus, and this one's on the west facing wall as well. And this puppy got covered in spider mites. And again, I have her inside a terracotta. I gotta pot her up because she's getting really big now. But this one was just covered in spider mites, and I had to put her in timeout. Wasn't her fault, but I had to put her in quarantine, and we brought her out on the balcony for a little while and put her off to a side area, sprayed her down with neem oil, and we went in with a Q-tip to try to get all those spider mites out, all those nooks and crannies. But they didn't transfer over to the aloe, which I was quite happy about, because spider mites, as you know, those who have them, they can be a pain. But aloes in general, spider mites is an issue, but more mealybugs and spider mites affect this plant. But we've been very fortunate, haven't had any of those. It's mostly mealybugs and spider mites that we worry about indoors on some of our plants. Mealybugs is probably the one that's most recurring. I don't know, maybe spider mites too. But we have a lot of Hoyas, so it's the mealybugs that attack the Hoyas. And those have been most of our issues is with mealybugs. So it's pretty low maintenance in that regard. If you do have mealybugs, you can use an alcohol and a Q-tip and just sort of kill them off by touching them with that, or you can use neem oil to control. Some people just wash it off, but mealybugs have a fast reproductive cycle, and it's good sometimes to spray the base of the pot too with neem oil to get any of the little critters down there. But mealybugs are kind of tricky because they can get into all these little crevices. Same thing with spider mites, but spider mites are a little bit more easier to catch when you see that webbing. They are very tiny insects, but once you see that webbing, you know you've got an infestation. You need to address it because they can proliferate like crazy. So now we talked about pests, temperature and humidity. These will do fine in your home AC of 60 to 80 degrees, no problem. You on humidity, it wants a little bit higher if you can, about north of 40, but ours are doing fine with no issue, about 40%, which is what home AC will bring you for a plant like this. We do have lava rock at the bottom of this pot, within a pot, to help give a little bit more moisture or humidity to the plant, but it's not really necessary. They do fine. We've had these in different pots over the years, and they do great without a pebble tray for the extra humidity. So now that I've gone over all that, we're going to rotate over into written care instructions so you can summarize all that I said about the plant, and you can take a screenshot if you want to hold up for your plant care needs, and then we'll come back and do a quick summary. We want to thank you for stopping by, but if you have any thoughts or questions, just leave them in the comments section below, and I'll make sure I get back to you. And until the next video, bye. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And tell your friends and family. We post videos weekly. Thanks.